Welcome, thrill seekers, to a world of spine-chilling tales and hair-raising adventures. Gather around for a frightful journey into the unknown as we delve deep into the realm of scary stories. Buckle up, hold on tight, and get ready to experience a rush of terror like never before. The sun was just beginning to set as Emily and her friends, Jack and Sarah, started their hike up the mountain trail. They had been planning this trip for months and were excited to finally be on the trail. They had everything they needed: water, snacks, and camping gear, and were looking forward to spending the night on the mountain. As they hiked, they chatted and laughed, enjoying the beautiful scenery around them. The trail was steep and rugged, but they were all experienced hikers and didn't mind the challenge. The sun soon disappeared behind the mountains, and the sky turned a deep shade of blue. The only light came from their flashlights and the stars above. As they hiked deeper into the mountains, Emily started to feel uneasy. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. She brushed it off, thinking it was just her imagination, but the feeling persisted. She tried to ignore it, but as they reached a particularly dark and shadowy section of the trail, the feeling intensified. Emily's heart started to race as she turned around and saw a figure standing behind them. It was a tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. It seemed to be watching them, waiting for them to make a move. Emily couldn't make out any features, but she could feel its presence looming over them. She tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. Jack and Sarah turned around and saw the figure too. They were just as terrified as Emily. They knew they had to get out of there as quickly as possible. They turned and ran down the trail, the shadowy figure hot on their heels. As they ran, Emily could hear the figure breathing heavily behind them. It sounded like it was right on their heels, but when she turned around, it was still a few feet away. They kept running, the figure always just out of reach. The trail seemed to go on forever, and Emily's legs felt like they were about to give out. Just as they thought they couldn't run anymore, they saw a small clearing up ahead. They raced towards it, hoping to find some shelter or safety. As they reached the clearing, they realized it was a small campsite with a tent and a campfire. They quickly ran towards the tent, hoping to find some refuge inside. But as they got closer, they saw that the tent was torn to shreds, and there was no sign of anyone around. They turned to run back the way they had come, but the shadowy figure was now standing in front of them, blocking their path. Its glowing red eyes seemed to be staring straight into their souls. They were trapped. There was nowhere to go, no one to call for help. They huddled together, waiting for the figure to make its move. Emily could feel her heart beating out of her chest, and her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She knew they were going to die. But just as the figure lunged towards them, a blinding light filled the clearing. The figure let out a deafening scream and disappeared into the darkness. Emily, Jack, and Sarah were left standing in the clearing, shaking and gasping for breath. They looked around, trying to make sense of what had just happened. They saw a group of people standing on the other side of the clearing, all holding flashlights and weapons. They had come to rescue them, just in time. The group of rescuers explained that they had been searching for the shadowy stalker for years. They had heard rumors of a terrifying creature that roamed the mountains, stalking hikers and campers. They had finally tracked it down to this area and were determined to put an end to its reign of terror. Emily, Jack, and Sarah were in shock. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The rescuers led them back down the mountain trail, and they walked in silence, still trying to process what had happened. When they reached the bottom of the mountain, they went straight to the police station to report what had happened. The police were skeptical at first, but when they heard the testimony of Emily, Jack, and Sarah, they knew something had to be done. The police launched an investigation into the shadowy stalker and discovered that it had been responsible for several disappearances and deaths in the area over the years. They had never been able to catch it, but with the help of the group of rescuers, they were able to track it down and destroy it once and for all. The news of the shadowy stalker's demise spread quickly throughout the town, and people began to feel safe again. Emily, Jack, and Sarah became local heroes, and their story was featured in newspapers and on TV. They were interviewed by reporters and invited to speak at local events. But despite the recognition and praise they received, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, watching her. She couldn't sleep at night, haunted by the memory of the shadowy figure and its glowing red eyes. One day, while she was out for a walk, she saw a man in the distance, standing in the shadows. He was tall and lean, with a hood covering his face. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she realized that it was the same figure she had seen on the mountain trail. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The figure started to walk towards her, and as he got closer, Emily could see his red glowing eyes. She knew she was in trouble. Suddenly, the figure stopped and turned around. Emily saw the group of rescuers standing behind him, holding weapons and flashlights. They had been following her, keeping an eye on her to make sure she was safe. The figure disappeared into the darkness once again, and the rescuers took Emily back to their base camp, where they explained that they had been tracking a group of people who had been using the shadowy stalker as a cover for their criminal activities. Emily was relieved to hear this, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, waiting for her. She knew that the shadowy stalker was gone, but there were still other dangers lurking in the darkness. From that day on, Emily made sure to always carry a flashlight and a weapon with her whenever she went out. She knew that the mountain trail was a dangerous place, and she didn't want to be caught off guard again. The memory of the shadowy stalker stayed with her for a long time, and she never forgot the terror she had felt that night. But she also remembered the bravery of the group of rescuers who had risked their lives to save hers. She knew that they were the real heroes of the story, and she was grateful to them for giving her a second chance. As the night draws to a close, we bid farewell to the terrors that haunted us and the spine-tingling tales that kept us on the edge of our seats. Remember, the darkness may linger, but the dawn always brings a new light. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop exploring the mysteries of the unknown.